Tonight, federal agents, American citizens, dead. Breaking: 2 American citizens killed in FBI ICE raid. We confirmed 2 U.S. citizens did not survive the Operation Metro Surge raid in Minneapolis.
FBI ICE, shots fired, 2 civilians down. Operation Metro Surge.
And federal agents, thousands of them, moving through Minneapolis neighborhoods before sunrise. She was unarmed, a mother of 3, an award-winning poet. She did not survive. At least 2 confirmed American citizens dead. The White House says the operation was lawful. The video tells a completely different story than what the officers wrote in their reports. At 4 minutes past 4 on a January morning, everything changed. Pre-dawn, Minneapolis, January 2026, 4:07 a.m. 12 unmarked SUVs rolled silently through the Powderhorn neighborhood, streets empty, porch lights still glowing in winter darkness. Federal agents were already everywhere. Operation Metro Surge, the largest immigration enforcement action ever conducted on American soil, had begun weeks earlier on December 1st, 2025. There was no press conference, no warning to Minneapolis officials, no briefing to the governor's office. According to Department of Homeland Security briefings and reporting by PBS NewsHour, the initial deployment involved roughly 2,000 federal agents, ICE officers, Customs and Border Protection personnel, and additional DHS units. By early January, that number had more than doubled. More than 4,000 armed federal agents were now operating inside a single American city. They moved through neighborhoods, through parking lots, through apartment corridors and corner stores. But the stated mission was simple: remove violent criminal illegal aliens from Minnesota streets. The worst of the worst, in the language of the administration's border and czar, Tom Homan. But the first crack in the operation appeared somewhere unexpected. Inside a McDonald's. On Minneapolis's north side, federal agents attempted to enter the restaurant while pursuing an arrest. A security guard stepped forward and blocked them. No warrant, no entry. But the incident was documented and later reported by the Minnesota Star Tribune. At the time, it looked minor. It wasn't. It was the first public sign that Operation Metro Surge was not unfolding the way its architects had described. According to arrest documentation later reviewed by reporters and summarized by outlets including CBS News Minnesota and the Minnesota Reformer, a number of early arrests did not involve violent criminal histories. In one analyzed snapshot of arrests, several individuals were detained during ordinary daily activities, picking up prescriptions, buying groceries, leaving workplaces. Not cartel leaders, not dangerous fugitives, people standing in checkout lines. Legal observers attempting to verify warrants at multiple arrest sites reported that documentation was not produced. The House Oversight Committee would later describe similar documentation gaps as a recurring pattern throughout the operation. Agents on the ground were encountering a city that had not been briefed and a public that had not been warned, and they didn't yet understand what they were seeing. 4:07 a.m., the SUVs rolled to a stop outside a quiet building on 26th Street. Minnesota Community Transport, LLC. On paper, it looked legitimate. A small trucking nonprofit, federal grants on file, clean licensing, nonprofit plates. But something didn't match. Truck manifests didn't align with the vehicles coming and going from the warehouse, and the air around the loading bay smelled like chemicals. Agents stacked at the roll-up door. FBI and ICE. Search warrant, no answer. Flashbangs detonated seconds later, lighting the alley in white bursts. Inside, workers didn't scatter. They locked the gates. One driver tried to ram a federal SUV. Agents lowered their weapons, then raised them again. Shots cracked into the tires. But the real discovery wasn't upstairs. The basement door was padlocked. A reason became clear at 4:19 a.m. when the battering ram broke through the hinges. Inside the basement, bags of white powder stacked in plastic drums, 47 kilograms. Field tests identified it as an ultra-pure fentanyl analog, nearly 98% concentration, 10 times stronger than anything previously seized in Minnesota. Agents froze. This wasn't just immigration enforcement, it was a drug pipeline. Across the Twin Cities, simultaneous warrants were already unfolding. Cedar Riverside, Richfield, staging areas near the Whipple Federal Building. Within hours, hundreds of arrests had been made. By January 19th, DHS announced a milestone: 3,000 arrests completed under Operation Metro Surge. But something else was emerging in the background, something far more dangerous than the drugs. The official reports. On January 14th, federal agents moved on a residential address in North Minneapolis targeting a Venezuelan man named Julio Cesar Sosa Celis. According to the Department of Homeland Security's official statement, Sosa Celis and 2 other men attacked a federal agent before the agent discharged his weapon. Sosa Celis was struck in the thigh. All 3 were arrested. The report was precise, time-stamped, filed under oath. Then video footage surfaced. Women present at the scene submitted sworn statements stating that Sosa Celis had retreated inside his home and was shot while closing and locking his own door, not while attacking anyone. According to reporting by the New York Times and PBS NewsHour, surveillance footage directly contradicted the official account. A federal judge later dismissed the charges. 2 ICE agents were placed on administrative leave, but investigators concluded that the written reports contained untruthful statements. And it wasn't the only case. Investigators reviewed 5 separate incidents tied to Operation Metro Surge, 5 sets of agent reports, 5 video records. According to analysis reported by multiple outlets, including PBS NewsHour, each video contradicted key elements of the official written accounts. 5 contradictions, 1 pattern. The investigation quietly shifted focus. And it was no longer about the targets of the operation, it was about the officers running it. Meanwhile, outside the enforcement zones, Minneapolis residents were beginning to push back. By late January, crowds were gathering outside a hotel near the University of Minnesota campus, the Graduate Hotel, widely believed to be housing federal agents involved in the surge. Hundreds formed a human chain across the street. Students, veterans, parents holding children, phones raised, film everything. Tactical teams deployed LRAD sound cannons. Tear gas arced overhead. More than 60 protesters were detained in a single enforcement sweep around the hotel perimeter, according to reporting from the Minnesota Daily. Dispatch lines called by legal observers attempting to locate detainees never answered. And then came the deaths. On January 7th, 2026, in Minneapolis' central neighborhood, ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot and killed Renée Nicole Good. She was 37, a mother of 3. A nationally recognized published poet. She was unarmed. Officials initially described the shooting as a lawful use of force. 15 days later, a private autopsy commissioned by her family revealed the details. 3 gunshot wounds, arm, chest, head. The findings were reported by The Guardian and NBC News. No explanation was provided for why lethal force had been used against an unarmed woman. 17 days later, another shooting, January 24th. Alex Jeffrey Pretti, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse employed by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, died after being shot by federal officers during a confrontation. According to a CBP internal report released to Congress, 2 officers fired their weapons. Pretti died at the scene. He was an American citizen. 2 citizens dead in less than 3 weeks. The House Oversight Committee later documented both deaths in a formal report examining Operation Metro Surge. It recommended that the FBI open independent investigations into each fatal use of force incident tied to the operation, but the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division declined to open a formal probe. According to reporting cited in the committee's findings and outlets including the Marshall Project, more than a dozen federal prosecutors resigned rather than continue under that decision. The system built to investigate constitutional violations had stepped aside. By February 12, 2026, the surge was ending. Tom Homan announced that the operation would wind down. Fewer than 400 enforcement officers would remain in Minnesota, but the record was already written. More than 4,000 arrests. 2 American citizens killed. 1 additional citizen shot and wounded. 5 incidents where official federal reports were contradicted by video evidence. 2 ICE agents placed on leave for filing false statements. More than 60 protesters detained at a single protest site. And a formal inquiry from the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights stating that the January shootings may constitute extrajudicial killings under international law. The ledger of events did not match the ledger of official reports. The investigations were still ongoing. The families of Renée Good and Alex Pretti were still waiting for answers. The video footage still existed. The autopsy findings had not changed. And the resignation letters from federal prosecutors had already been delivered. When more than 4,000 federal agents deploy inside a single American city and 2 citizens are dead, and official reports contradict the cameras, and prosecutors walk away rather than defend the paperwork, one question remains: who exactly was the operation designed to protect?